And here we are in Tokyo with the exchange rates fluctuating as they should normally do. Again, everything is cyclical, everything goes up and everything comes down. And over the last few days, we've seen the Japanese yen get stronger. And this has been the opposite direction. In fact, it got so strong, it startled a lot of people, startled the international markets. The Nikkei, which is the Japanese stock market, is down as a result of a Bank of Japan rate hike, which went up, and nobody really expected Japan to boost rates. But in this episode, I'm going to kind of break down what this all means. When you look at the exchange rates, which is what I'm always doing, I'm always scratching my head like, why did that happen? And then I do a little research, and then we find out that it just got about 7% more expensive for tourists who are visiting Japan, if you haven't exchanged money already. How you doing, everybody? This hit the wire not too long ago. You could see on July 10th, the exchange rate was 161 to the dollar, which is just insane. It's just crazy. And now it stands under 150 yen to the dollar. We haven't seen this rate in a few months. And it's the opposite direction that a lot of you who are hoping to come to Japan are hoping for, because again, the weaker the yen is, the more affordable Japan is. Arthur Vanderlei, how you doing, buddy? Yeah. So that's something that I think is very noteworthy, because now the food got a little bit more expensive, the hotel got a little bit more expensive, your adventures in Japan get a little bit more expensive, but that's okay. However, this should, and I hope, fingers crossed, that this nixes this, two-tier pricing system that Japan was considering. Oh, the yen is so weak, the tourists are so rich, and we're getting the worst of it. Hopefully that dispels that, because this is proof that you cannot make a policy that is not going to be changed so quickly based on currency which is fluctuating so rapidly. Now, we didn't expect this, and I kind of was shaken by this. This is from the Japan Times. Here, the Bank of Japan delivers a 1-2 punch that people were expecting. This was what, like 48 hours ago or less than that? This is the Bank of Japan's raised rates Wednesday in a surprising and aggressive move that caught the market off guard, and me too, delivering a 1-2 punch of a rate change and a reduction in bond purchases that a week ago was considered highly unlikely. Again, Japan is not known for doing these unpredictable actions, which has just stirred up a lot. In light of this and what's happening in the U.S. markets, there's talk of a recession in the United States. Let me go through this really quickly, because there's so much stuff going on here. At its 2-day policy meeting, the BOJ, Bank of Japan, voted to increase, I just went by there. Well, basically, the Bank of Japan is always kind of wishy-washy. It says here in the article, they're never really clear. You kind of have to read between the lines. I'm just going to kind of summarize this. This is on the Japan Times from Wednesday, so I think it's a good article to kind of read to get a better understanding about this. But the results of the meetings were much watched globally, yes, as just weeks ago, the possibility of monetary tightening in Japan was followed by extreme volatility in currency. Stocks, especially those in tech-related, we're seeing that the Nikkei go down as a result of this. Analysts said that the higher rates in Japan threaten to carry trade in which money is borrowed cheaply in yen and invested in higher-yielding securities, blah, blah, blah. To most of you here, after hitting about 162 to the dollar in early July, the yen had strengthened to about 122 ahead of this meeting. So the yen had been getting stronger. And then they decided, well, you know what? I think this is what they're thinking. The Japanese yen is getting weaker, but the economy looks like it's getting stronger. Wages are starting to go up. Inflation has been happening. Japan has been undergoing deflation, which is not a good thing. Prices of things were flat. A bottle of Coca-Cola, for example, remained the same price for like 2 decades. Wages were the same as 2 decades. While the world was going up, Japan had been like this. So the purchasing power of the Japanese was not increasing. In fact, it was really bad. Going to the United States, it cost me an arm and a leg. It wasn't like that when I came to Japan 26 years ago. Now everything, it seems like the policies have caught up, and no longer does Japan need to have a negative interest rate. And in fact, they had just, about 6 months ago, increased the interest rates to 0.1%, which is crazy low. Why would you even put your money in a savings account? You can invest it in a small business and make returns higher than that, much higher than that. You would invest your money in something else other than savings at the bank, but now it's 0.25, which is still ridiculously low for an interest rate, and it looks like they're going to be getting back to 1% and 2, and when they do that, that means the yen is going to get stronger because people are going to invest in Japan, and that means prices will eventually get back, I hate to say it, maybe back to 100 yen equals $1. And again, we can dispel with this two-tier pricing system that tourists are always rich because, again, this is all cyclical. Things go up, things go down. The Japanese economy gets stronger while the next story, the U.S. economy looks to get weaker. We're in an election cycle. I'm not going to get into the politics of it all, but the last time we had a recession was in 2000 in the United States. There was the election and the administration put a lot of money into stuff. Again, this probably comes from a lot of borrowing and deficit, but they got the economy to go back rising again. It was in a pretty strong position. And now it looks like at the election time, if the U.S. goes into a recession, that's going to look bad for this current administration. So if it's the economy stupid, I'm going to say that this bodes well for the competitor and not the incumbent. I'm just going to leave it at that. But the stories now coming in particular, reflect what's happening with the yen in a way, because now with the news of a U.S. recession and the jobs data not looking good, this is also driving the yen higher. So again, this came from the Financial Times. Jay Powell, who's keeping calm about the U.S. economic outlook, perhaps overly so. The Federal Reserve opted to hold interest rates at its midweek meeting, so they didn't change it at all. And the jobs data is cooling, so it looks like there's going to be a downturn to the economy going into the third quarter, and that is going to be quite a problem, especially if you're going to be visiting Japan. So this all is so interconnected. Again, you can read the article here, that's from the Financial Times. There's a bunch of articles that are listing this out there. So what this essentially means is that for the vast majority of you who are coming here, maybe this is not a bad time to change the money, but again, currency and trying to how do you say, gain in the market, it's almost like gambling. And I want you to realize that anybody who says buy the yen now or sell your yen now, trust me, it's like gambling. You just cannot predict. Just like what happened 36 hours ago with the Bank of Japan interest rate raise, you can't predict the direction that they're going to go, and they're so, the word is dovish, not explaining exactly what they're going to do, because they don't want you to know, because they don't want the manipulation of the market. So I'm hoping that Japan stays still quite affordable, but I think, and there's a lot of positivity, there's a lot of talking about how the Japanese economy is going to be making its way back, that prices for you guys as tourists are going to get more expensive as a result of the strengthening yen, in particular those from the United States. From other countries, maybe it'll be a little bit different. I don't think it mattered too much for the Aussies, although the Australian dollar somewhat is linked to the US dollar. But timing the market is nearly impossible, writes in Ted. It is. 149 is a pretty good deal. You better believe it's a good deal. I was shocked when we got to 147, which was 148 to the dollar was what it was when I came to Japan in July of 1998. And it had not seen that rate until 2022. But I'm guessing that it's going to hover around 140 and 150 for quite a while. Thank you, Ramsey Silent. Yes, please do hit that like button. And just tonight, I'm going to be releasing this video. It's a long time coming. It's a massive statue called Todaiji, the Daibutsu, or the big Buddhist statue. Gets cleaned by 200 people from the temple, and I got press access to go in there and take a look and get the story on why they do this with no electricity whatsoever, cleaning a 15-meter or 50-foot statue. It's really cool to see them with no electricity get in there. These little people working on this big statue of Buddha, and some of the cultural points behind it. I got a chance to record all of this. The video is done, been approved by the temple, which gave me access, and as a result of the access, They had a little bit of oversight into making sure I didn't post something that was unwanted. It is a the give and take of getting permission to film sometimes is that you have to wait a little bit longer and to deal with the staff there. But they were all really nice, and I think it makes the video better to have that kind of access. And the interview of the chief abbot of Todaiji Temple, to get a chance to hear from him, is I think gives a lot more value to the video. So I hope that you like it. It's going to be released tonight. Patreon supporters will have early access in a couple of hours as I upload this video to YouTube. Thanks so much for the support, guys. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen with the U.S. dollar and the yen, and I'm not supposed to, but again, we're seeing in Japan the Nikkei really start to tank. And when it does that, it's usually because the yen is getting stronger, and that means a lot of companies that are making US dollars are making less money. That means Sony is making less money, Toyota is making less money, the big corporations, the multinational corporations that were making dollars are making less money when the yen gets stronger. So that's not really good for the Nikkei, since a lot of these companies here are multinationals. Like, they rely a lot on North America to make it. I know, so everybody knows that Sony Japan is more North America than it is. Sony's not as a huge brand in Japan as it is in North America. Shock, shock. Japan's Nikkei stock index briefly slid over 2,000 points Friday morning, that's this morning, to a 6-month low in the global market rout, stirred by concerns of a recession in the U.S. after weaker than expected economic data. This is what I'm talking to you about. All right, the 225 issue Nikkei stock average is like the, it's like the Dow Jones has this. Well, I think you get the point here without having to zoom in on me. It doesn't look good for the U.S. economy. And this is gonna start to stir up the U.S. elections as well. I've already decided who I'm going to vote for. But I'm gonna vote for whoever is best for the relationship with Japan and the United States and the economic side of things. So that might be telling right there. But again, who I vote for and my politics has no bearing on anything, but it's just a supercharged time in the media. And I hope that we don't have to discuss this at all on this channel. But it's funny because after being in the US for an entire month and living through the politics, I'm so glad that I'm in Japan. I'm so glad that I'm here and I don't have to hear everything on TV and the news media, which is so skewed. Like, the media is so skewed right now. I don't have to hear that here. I love it. This is the greatest thing about living in Japan as an expat. I can vote, doesn't matter. I don't have to listen to all the back and forth, because once you vote, it doesn't even matter, all the bickering. You vote, that's it, it's done. Why is it not looking good? The jobs data that just came in was negative, and it looks like Japan, on a cyclical basis, is heading towards a recession. And if the U.S. is heading towards a recession, and then we have 2 or 3 big debates that are coming in, this bodes well for the incumbent. Just saying. I think if it's the economy stupid, then the election, we will see. Again, you can't predict economic data. It changes so darn quickly, but it's highly likely. Hello, hi, 821. I live in the United States. Do you not have listened to any more news than you want to? Absolutely. That's what I love about covering Japan. You don't have to get into the politics so much. But with this kind of an episode, you know what? The most interesting thing with this is just how they've called for a recession for the last 2 years and still no recession. I don't think the soft landing is going to happen. I think that in an election year with so much uncertainty, war looming possibly, situation getting worse, trade, a lot of stuff, the election year is key. It just feels like there's a recession is on the way. I don't know how bad it's going to be, but the jobs data did not give good signs. Usually the lines are going up. Lines always go down and up and down, but I think it has to go down for a certain amount of period to be considered in a recession. But if it does hit a recession and the data starts to look worse and worse, if we get into the next month, into the next quarter, before the election, that's not a good. So we got the second quarter data, and the third quarter data will come in before the election, I believe, maybe. And that's going to be telling. I don't know. It's not that bad today. The humidity, as long as you stay out of the sun, which is what I'm doing. You can live. But the day before yesterday, I talked about the heat and the heat index and the dangers of Japan. And I'm going to be talking about a story that hit a few weeks ago when I was in the United States. I think it's really important to point it out. If you do go swimming in Japan, keep in mind the riptides of the Pacific Ocean are much worse than the Atlantic Ocean and a lot of other places that you might be living. The Pacific Ocean is very dangerous. Californians know this. You could be carried out to sea, as one Chinese tourist experienced, being carried out 80 kilometers into the Pacific Ocean with the Japanese Coast Guard saving her life. How crazy is that? Hanging onto an intertube as she floats down into the Pacific. Thank goodness for the Japan Coast Guard finding her a dot on the ocean. And how did she not know this? I guess she was at a beach in Shizuoka, and the tide just kept taking her out, and her friend, what was it? Was her friend waving to her? What? You'd think that the police would react before she got 80 kilometers out. But it's a pretty amazing story, right? Frank knows about this too. When I read it, I'm like, holy crap! I know this too? You don't really go swimming in the ocean unless you really know the local situation, the riptide. But she went out there 80 kilometers past Oshima, going towards Chiba, following the John Manjiro route, it seems like, going out into the Pacific. And if she had gone on for another 24 hours, well, she would have just died from hypothermia or lack of food or sharks. Who knows what would have gotten her? But she survived 88, what was it, like 2.5 or 3 days out in the Pacific. That's crazy. And to find a dot on the ocean, that's really hard. So, yeah. 1's 2 cents right in here. I'm so happy to see the yen climbing back. My family in Chiba will be happy and sad. I sent money to them. So while good money won't go so far, it's a happy thought. Yeah, you know, I think 160 was a little bit too high. I think there's this happy median. It seems to be like 130 to 135. Like, I don't mind it so much. Things are a little bit more still expensive to me, but tourists are quite happy about that. 160 is just ridiculous. And tourists, the grin on tourists is just like Joker level. Like, you're like Joker level. It's not good when I see tourists with Joker level smiles, something's evil going on here. So I'm kind of happy to see it come back to earth. And I'm using Joker references because Leo really isn't a Batman right now, for better or for worse. He's starting his punching and stuff like this, but it's very interesting. I'll take a couple of questions here as we end this in 20 minutes or less. I cry 100 yen, 120 Singapore dollars is no longer a thing, but then again, it benefits tourists, not locals. Yeah. It's not just the US dollar. You have to think about all the Singapore dollar, quite strong in Southeast Asia. It's one of the global currencies as well. Hong Kong dollar too. You know, China, it seems to keep their currency somewhat manipulated. I don't know. I don't want to say the word. I just said it. 3 of the 4 syllables. 5 syllables. So we'll see. But when it comes to the US dollar and the Japanese yen, look, I was not happy that the Japanese Bank of Japan was manipulating the Japanese currency they spent billions and billions of dollars that could have gone elsewhere, and they're trying to keep the yen weaker, which again pays off for itself, because then commodities like gasoline come down, and then you're spending billions and billions less to buy those things. But by manipulating the market, you're trying to get the speculators to start to sell their yen to make it weaker, or to buy the yen. I don't know. You know what? I'm just glad that the Fed is now the Bank of Japan is doing the right thing, raising rates. I can start to save in Japan and make money, but I don't think you'd ever put your money in a savings account in Japan anyways. It made like negative returns for like a decade, and now finally you're getting 0.25%. And I think that that's a bad rate because inflation's much higher than that. You don't want to put your money into the stock markets. Stocks will rebound eventually. Maybe you'll get a better deal now. I don't know. But it's not a great thing for the tourists. If the yen is too strong, Japan's more expensive. People will go to other places. Yen is strong. You don't need that 2-tier pricing system anymore. So a warning to my Japanese friends who are still considering dual pricing, because you cannot roll that back, and it hurts the reputation of Japan. After this, probably not do that. Leave me comments in the comment section below, and I will spend some time every day and answer one. In August, we're going to be rolling out this Q&A where I go around and answer the questions that you leave in comments, and then one for their Patreon supporters. Thank you so much over there. And then have a video released every single day, which is so exciting. I hope that that is useful to you, because again, I've been here for 26 years. And I really want this channel to be a resource for you guys planning your trips to Japan. As my main content is more story-based, like this, it's maybe good for tourists, but it's not exactly, you know, where to go for tourists. It's about understanding about Japan. It's about understanding the culture and the history. This channel is more geared towards you and the interaction that we have when I'm live and being able to do this. And I also have a phone number that you can call. I will utilize those. I've got a couple of voicemails that came in. It's Texas area code 1325, call OIJ. That's 1325-2255-645. If you call that number, follow the prompts, you could leave a message. I will play it back when we have a couple of good questions here. Yeah, thanks guys for spending some time with me this afternoon. 20 minutes hit. I'll be back again tomorrow or tonight. I'm going to get back into the podcasting as the jet lag is finally over with. Thank goodness. That's the hard thing with traveling across the Pacific. The jet lag is awful. And I know the Hawaiians are going, it's not that bad for us. But I went to Hawaii, it's bad enough. Anything from the West Coast over, man, you get knocked out from the jet lag. So maybe try not to plan so much on the first 2 days that you come to Japan, folks, especially with the heat. Oh my gosh, and the jet lag, it is awful. Stay in the air conditioning, stay cool everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in another episode soon. Mata ne.